She ran for 3 years, trying to forget what she did that night. And then, fate made the worst possible choice. It placed beside her the brother of the girl she was trying to forget. What if the love of your life was the person you hurt the most? Some people disappear from the world, but remain alive, not by choice, but because of guilt. This is the story of one of them. It was a Sunday afternoon. The city seemed suspended in mist, and heavy rain fell. Traffic lights blinked more patiently. Footsteps slowed. The sound of water replaced voices. For Leah, that pause was the only way to keep breathing. After that fateful day, the one when she had to flee and never be seen again, she spent her days adrift in silence. There was no one she could talk to, no one she could confide in about what she had done 3 years ago. She had moved away, took refuge in a small town where no one knew her, and so she tried to live. She survived on the little money left from her father's inheritance. Work was a thing of the past, along with her old name, friends, and plans. She drifted through her days. All that remained was her trembling hands, and an old bus stop on 17th Street, where no one else waited for anything. There, under a rusted and cracked canopy, she found shelter. Not by fate, but because pain needed a place to exist without being questioned. That bus stop was near her new home. No one bothered her there, but she could still watch people pass by. It was her way of fighting loneliness, since she no longer had the courage to return to her old home, her old life, her family, or her friends. Until one day, suddenly, everything changed. The bench where she sat alone for hours received an unexpected visitor. The first time, he appeared without warning. A tall, thin man, wearing a dark coat soaked to the knees and carrying a leather folder. He said nothing. He just sat on the opposite side of the bench, and together, they listened to the water dripping through the gutters. Two silent presences who didn't know each other's names, yet shared something invisible, yet real. Strangely, the presence of that man calmed Leah's soul. She couldn't explain it. How could a stranger bring her such peace? She had never seen him before. She didn't even have the courage to greet him. They just sat there, breathing, listening to the rain. And when the rain stopped, he left. In a way, Leah felt relief, but something stirred inside her. She regretted letting him leave without asking his name, or where he was from, or if he lived or worked nearby. The next day, Leah returned to her routine. As soon as the rain began, she went back to the bus stop on 17th Street. But now, instead of empty thoughts and bitter memories of the day that changed her life, she found herself thinking about that stranger. What if he came back? Still lost in her thoughts, she was surprised when he returned. This time, he gathered the courage to introduce himself. His name was Raphael. He brought coffee, a clumsy gesture, like offering warmth to a stranger who had already become part of his routine. She accepted, and even though they didn't exchange many words, something felt different that afternoon. The silence seemed less heavy. They only said what you'd expect from strangers meeting for the first time. She learned his name and that he worked nearby. The day before, he had been late for work and got caught in the rain, so he decided to sit and wait it out. He didn't ask much about Leah. He sensed her discomfort after the first question, which was her name. He didn't want to come off as invasive. Raphael said he needed to return to his commitments, said goodbye, and left. That time of year, it often rained and was cold. More rains came, and with them, more encounters. The world outside kept turning, but at that forgotten bus stop, time seemed to slow. Always at the same time, Leah and Raphael would meet coincidentally at the hour of the rain. As the weeks passed, fragments of stories emerged. Leah grew more connected to Raphael, and slowly, the memory of what she had done began to fade. She told him she used to be a literature teacher. Her love for books still sparkled in her eyes, even though she now preferred to read them silently, without an audience. He revealed that he restored old photos. He worked at a small studio downtown. He dealt in faded memories, as if trying to bring color back to what time tried to erase. They spoke little, but there was intimacy in their presence, her hands tightly holding books, his eyes watching the rain, like someone trying to talk to ghosts. After many meetings at the same bus stop on 17th Street, one afternoon, the sky unleashed its fury. They huddled closer than usual, and as if the rain tore down his walls, Raphael decided to share a piece of his pain. It was the greatest pain he had ever felt. He had lost his younger sister 3 years ago. A car accident. A night just like that one. The grief still lingered in his gestures. He didn't fully understand what had happened. It was in a nearby town, on a rainy night. To this day, they hadn't found the driver who caused the accident. It was the saddest night of his life. So, he decided to move to that small town to start over. He felt guilty for not stopping his sister from going out that day. While Raphael shared the most painful story of his life, he looked at Leah and saw something shift. Leah's face turned hard. The air grew dense. Panic took over. Everything inside her screamed to run, but she stayed. The accident. She remembered every detail. The blur crossing the street, the headlights, the horn, the brakes, the impact, the fallen body, the absolute silence that followed. It crushed her every day. So, she confessed. She said she was the one driving, that she ran, that she was never arrested, that she changed her name, that she hadn't truly lived since. She waited, maybe to be judged, or hurt, or abandoned. But Raphael simply stood up and walked away. Without looking back, Leah stayed, frozen. All her pain returned, every memory of what she had done. On that fateful day, she was leaving work, tired, sleepy. The rain was the worst she'd ever seen. That crash haunted her. She ran in desperation, didn't know how she could have done it. In the days that followed, there was no rain, just sun, blue skies, dry air. Still, Leah returned to the bus stop every day, even without rain. Raphael's absence hurt. It mingled with the pain of her conscience. How could she have done that? She dared speak to in her loneliness the person who most loved her victim. She carried guilt and hope, waiting for something she wasn't sure she deserved. When the rain returned, her heart raced. She ran to the stop, and he was there. There were no accusations, just the presence of two broken hearts facing an irreversible memory. She said there wasn't a single day she didn't think of his sister. He said he had looked for her, not for revenge, but to understand, to look into the eyes of the one who took the person he loved most, and see if there was remorse. And he saw it, there, in that rain-soaked reunion. Something fragile was born, a thread between forgiveness and pain. The truth was, Raphael had located the hit-and-run driver a year before. He opened his studio near her new home to monitor her. He saw her sitting at the bus stop on 17th Street every time it rained. At first, he wanted to turn her in, but over time, he saw the distant stare the loneliness, the emptiness in her eyes. He no longer knew what he felt: pity, compassion, until one day, he worked up the courage to sit beside her. He couldn't bring himself to harm her. After revealing this to Leah, they kept seeing each other, sometimes in the rain, sometimes not. They spoke little but understood much, sitting side by side, unhurried. There were no accusations, only connection. Over time, Leah felt relief in not having to hide anymore, since her secret had been revealed. But she still had doubts about Raphael's true intentions. Still, she allowed herself to relax around him and even began writing again. Short diaries, small passages. Sometimes, she read them to him. Texts about loss, guilt, and the beauty of things that cannot be fixed. Raphael brought an old photo of his sister, restored. He wanted her to see it, not to punish her, but to remember, to keep alive the memory of who she was, beyond the tragedy. They began walking together after the rain, first in silence, then sharing memories. He spoke of childhood. She talked about books she loved. The pain was still there, but now there was room for other things too. Over time, their gazes lingered longer. Silences grew softer. The guilt didn't disappear, but it stopped being a wall between them. It became a strange, yet honest foundation on which they built something new. One afternoon, the rain fell gently, like a whisper. Sitting on the same bench as always, he got up and kissed her for the first time. Neither of them smiled, but there were no tears either. But Leah had no idea what would happen after that kiss. The next day, Leah returned to the bus stop at the same time as always, but Raphael wasn't there. There was only a small white envelope on the bench. She opened it. It was the restored photo of his sister. On the back, a handwritten note. "This isn't revenge. It's freedom. You can stop running now, and I need to leave." She closed her eyes and began to cry, but it was a calm cry, almost grateful. Raphael didn't stay, but he left forgiveness behind, and he disappeared forever. He left without looking back, not out of anger, but because it was the only way to move forward. Sometimes, forgiveness doesn't stay. It just passes through and leaves space behind. Years later, Leah still visits the same bus stop on 17th Street. The place is the same, but she is not. She returns there every time it rains, not to hide, but to remember that she survived. That, one day, someone saw her and chose not to hurt her, but to set her free. This was just one of the many stories we have to tell. Like, subscribe, and join us for the next one.